Good afternoon. My name is Jeffrey Herbst, and I'm president of American Jewish University in Los Angeles. And welcome to another program sponsored by our Wizen Center for Open Learning. This is the second part of a three-part series on rethinking allyship. Today, we'll be discussing LGBTQ plus perspectives on anti-Semitism and solidarity with Professor Corinne Blackmer. The AJU program on the future of allyship came about because of our observations that many in the Jewish community, especially after October 7th, have asked, where are our allies, but did not have a very good understanding of what other groups perceived the Jewish community as wanting or what they were able to offer. Therefore, with the help of the Schechter-Levine program in public ethics and the Sid B. Levine service learning program, which provided critical assistance for this project, AJU has worked with a variety of scholars who study and sometimes identify with other communities to understand their perspectives of allyship with the Jewish community. These are perspectives that are seldom heard, but which are especially important. Today, I'm delighted to be talking with Professor Corinne Blackmer. She is professor of English and director of Judaic Studies at Southern Connecticut State University. She's authored numerous works, including Queering Anti-Zionism. She's currently working on a memoir of her grandmother, My Grandmother as an Abortionist Before Roe. Professor Blackmer, welcome. So glad you could join us today.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Maybe to begin with and to introduce you to our audience, you could tell us a little bit about your experience as a Zionist in the LGBTQ plus community.
Sure. I've been a Zionist for a long, long time. I think by the time I was 8 years old, I was so pro-Israeli, and then my grandparents said, this is what a Zionist is. And I also served in the IDF. I was actually considering becoming an Israeli citizen for a while. And I was in the Yom Kippur War, and it was a very tough war and very dangerous. The most dangerous thing that's happened to Israel, in my opinion, since October 7th. And we got through it, and I came home. And it was okay to be a Zionist, and then suddenly it wasn't. Was my experience of that. I am a lesbian, and I also have done a lot of activism for the gay community over the years. And I eventually discovered that, or quickly, I should say, discovered that I had to closet my Zionism among people who were closeted sexually. And so it was terribly ironic. It's gotten worse over the years, and I have not changed my position. I'm very pro-Israel. I'm very glad we have a homeland. We need one. And but I have been mystified, and it's very difficult to be in my spot by the sheer volume of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism in the queer community.
I'll be talking with Professor Blackmore for about 20 minutes, and then we welcome questions from you, the audience. Please start submitting questions via the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen now, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. Professor, not everyone is very familiar with this community, and it's a diverse one, especially given all the letters in its name. So maybe you could first begin by describing its major divisions or
Sure.
elements today.
Yeah, I mean, there are two major groups of gay people, and then there's a third special group, which I would call the university or intellectuals. The first group is middle-class gays and lesbians, and I just use the word queer to sort of cover gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and then sort of everybody else. The first group are middle class. Most have gone to college and are Democrats and believe in the system, very happy to do things like get married or to integrate into the system and have, good careers and very centrist kind of people. Okay, that's them. Then there's the second group of people who actually hate the first group of people, and the first group of people don't know what to do with the second group of people. I should mention about the first group of people before I leave talking about them is that they are very happy with the existence of Israel and are opposed to anti-Semitism. The second group of people are, I've sometimes been inclined to call them the hotheads, and they're leftists. They're very, very loud. They know how to get attention put on themselves, and they're very committed. They're very strong in their belief system and opinions, and they are aggressively anti-Zionist. They'll let you know, and if you're anything else, you're going to get into an argument that you won't win because it's not a debatable point for them. They have all gone to university, or most, not all of them, most, and studied in one of the ethnic studies programs or Black studies programs or women, particularly women and gender studies programs. And there's a sort of now self enhancing phenomena of everyone being anti-Zionist and taking it, is there any way we can even do this further? And the last group are the leaders of the second group. And there are people like Judith Butler, Jasper Puar, Sarah Schulman, who are famous, excuse me, famous Jewish, lesbian, or queer anti-Zionists. They write about, excuse me, they write about the topic vociferously. They publish lots of books, and they have a kind of a natural bond with the second group of gays and lesbians who are anti-Zionist and disparage the first group as sellouts, and not, they don't think deeply. So that's kind of how the gay and lesbian community defines itself around Israel and Zionism.
And could you attach even rough percentages to those different groups?
Sure. You would think, to hear from the intellectuals, you think that the first group was very marginal. Actually, it's at least 60% of gays and lesbians or queer people. They don't like the word queer, so I'm just going to not bother using it. But they are the majority, and that, if you go to mainstream gay and lesbian publications, they're very pro-Israel. And they also identify with Israel as a place that has a very, very strong record of LGBTQ civil rights. And some of the strongest in the whole world. If not, I think maybe the strongest. The second group is about, I'm going to say, 38%, 35%. And again, they are very loud, very noisy. They do a lot of protesting in public. So they're the ones that people think of as gay, as queer, when they think about queer people at all.
So given the divisions in this community, which you portray it quite stark, are there overall leaders of the community, or is it fragmented?
Like, are there overall what?
Leaders?
Yeah, sure. Well, here's something that interesting has happened in terms of the leadership of the 65% who are okay with Zionism in Israel. They have been either removed or marginalized. And the reason being, there's some still left. Like, you can look at political figures like Pete Buttigieg, would represent someone who is still a leader in that group, and other people of his ilk. What's happened is that transgender issues have pushed aside every other issue in most mainstream gay and lesbian organizations. And people are complaining about it because they don't feel cared about or represented any longer. So they have a kind of a leadership challenge that is happening to them. But younger people are coming up who are very pro-Israel, and but their position is difficult.
Let's go directly to allyship issues. So,
Yeah.
Jewish community pretty far left on at least the American political spectrum would seem to be natural allies and in an allyship relationship with the gay and queer community. Was that the case before October 7th?
Yes. Yes. As long as I have known gay and lesbian people, they have been Zionists, and in particular, really objected to anti-Semitism or anti-Israel sentiments. So that's been going on for a long time, and it just seems to them just a part of what it means to be queer and marginalized. Oh, look at the Jewish people, and they're very happy. Jewish people, by and large, except for Orthodoxy, have very liberal views about sexuality. So that speaks well for them. Their treatment of gays and lesbians speaks well for them. So they have been allies of Jewish people for since early 80s, and more so as Judaism became more inclusive of gay and lesbians. People convert even.
So how would you define this or describe the situation after October 7th?
October 7th forced people to kind of put a flag in the ground. And the people who are anti-Zionist became extremely vocal and extremely extreme. So the temperature of the whole room raised, and the mainstream gays and lesbians felt that this was terrible, what had happened to Israel. They blamed Hamas, and as far as they're concerned, anti-Semitism and hatred of Jewish people is at the heart of the whole problem between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
So the vocal minority, as you describe them, has received a
Yeah.
lot of attention. And I guess the pressing question for many in the Jewish community is, given that Hamas has been so homophobic, given homophobia in the large parts of the Middle East outside of Israel,
Yeah.
how does that group end up being
Right.
such vocal opponents of the one place in the Middle East that seems to be relatively progressive on gay and queer rights?
It's everybody asked me that question, Jeffrey, and I'm glad you did, because it's a very important question that is impossible to evade. I live close to Yale, and last year there were the encampments all over, and there was a couple of big signs that read "Queers for Palestine," and so I actually tried to go up to a couple of people and ask them. I said, "Hey, I'm Jewish. I'm a lesbian," and they asked me if I was a Zionist. Somebody did. The rest of them stayed absolutely silent because I was an outsider still. And they said, "We won't talk to you." So silence. You can't get anything from them because it's sort of a social version of BDS, where boycott, divestment, sanctions, where you just don't talk to the other side because they are inherently inhuman. It would be like talking to a Holocaust denier. Okay, so where do they get these funny beliefs? First of all, they don't trust Western media. So they think that these stories about Hamas are Western propaganda drummed up by Israel and the United States. So that's number one. They don't believe it. And no one's going to go to Gaza to check it out for sure. And the other thing is that queer Palestinians have come to the United States and to gay and lesbian centers and so forth and so on, and to talk about how they are happy to be queer Palestinians. And if you ask them, which I did, well, aren't you dealing with a homophobic environment? They said, yes, absolutely, that's true. But our situation is not so different. The situation of um, uh, Iraqi or Iranian gays and lesbians who are also Jewish. They're very homophobic. Orthodox gay and lesbians, and they're in a very homophobic environment. Or Russian, gay and lesbians, and they're a very homophobic environment, all in these Jewish cultures. And they said, but we love our culture, and it's very important to us to support it. So we can put up with these traditionalist views because we feel so connected to our culture. And there's a lot of dissembling in that point of view because actually it is physically dangerous to be gay or lesbian, even in the West Bank. You will get killed for it in Gaza. And so there's some dissembling going on with that. Did I answer your question, or is there?
Yeah, no, I think that's very important. Let me ask you a follow-up, which is
Yeah,
part of this discussion has been accusations against Israel of pinkwashing.
right,
You'll be familiar with, but maybe you could explain to the audience and
right.
how you evaluate that.
Right. Pinkwashing is a non sequitur, logically speaking, but here's what it is. It is the idea that Israel only accepts queer people, queer Israelis, only does it because they're good propaganda, number one. And number two, this acceptance of gay and lesbian Israelis allows them to hide the real truth of Israel, which is that it is a colonist oppressor of the Palestinians. And so the whole gay community in Israel is automatically delegitimized and discounted. And they call themselves pink because that's been a color that has been associated with gays and lesbians since the Holocaust, and at least since the Holocaust. And so you're kind of covering up, and even you're using advertisements to, isn't Israel wonderful? It's this queer friendly place of democracy and openness and so forth and so on. And the answer to that question, yes, it is. Maybe not so much in certain places in Israel, but I mean, yeah. And so it's the whole argument is everywhere you go in the world, there are tourist attractions, and people have, New Haven, there's a whole little shop of promoting New Haven as a tourist attraction. But in this case, that, which is a very normal behavior, come to our place because you can see this, this, and this, becomes this insidious plot to make invisible the relationships between Israelis and Palestinians.
I'll be asking Professor Blackmer questions for about 10 minutes or so more, and then we welcome questions from you, the audience. Please start submitting them now. We're starting to get a very large number, as a matter of fact, and we'll happy to get to as many as possible. So part of the struggle I think many Jewish people have had in understanding, especially post October 7th events, is how the rubric of issues under diversity, equity, inclusion fit in this. And a critique in the Jewish
Right.
community, or an explanation of what's happened, is that DEI kind of divides the world into the oppressed and the oppressors, and the Jews wind up, because they're coded as white, as oppressors. Does this play into the more specific Jewish gay and queer community relationships?
Um, to a certain extent, among the radicals who are already anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, and anti-Zionist. And here, I mean, first of all, at least according to my experience, DEI is not a good place for Jewish people. It just they always forget Jewish people, and if you remind them they're not white in the way you're thinking of, neither are they oppressors, they still get marginalized. Which it's very strange, being myself a lesbian, Jewish, Zionist, because I'm cut in three pieces. And sometimes it's hard to figure out how to put them back together. DEI wholly embraces and gay and lesbian people very, very deeply. And it doesn't do that with Jewish people. So that part of your, or at least my identity in DEI, would not be heard very much. Um, so hopefully DEI will improve. If it's not sort of made illegal, which it looks like that's what's sort of beginning to happen in our politics. But not until they give up this sort of oppress and oppressor paradigm that they work with, and construe Jews as white within.
Yeah, I think you anticipated my next question, which is, especially given recent actions by the Trump administration, I think a great many would believe that the overall sentiments and impetus behind DEI are oftentimes very noble, to produce a more diverse and equitable society, but there have been real challenges in implementation. So can it be
Yeah.
fixed, or is the administration's approach, which is to ban it with what comes next,
Right.
certain a better way?
I think it would be possible for DEI to be improved greatly, and for it to be a place that actually served Jewish students along with all the other marginalized or struggling groups. And but they would have to rethink their very intellectual foundations and get away from the idea, or abandon the idea, that the world is a dichotomous place filled with oppressed or oppressors. And if they did that, then I think that it would be useful. The other reaction I have to DEI is, to what extent does it or does it not change people, change attitudes, improve them? And I want to say there are better ways to spend your money. Say, for instance, you have some extra money and you want to improve outcomes or integration of African Americans. You spend your money on giving people individual tutoring, for example, or spend your money on making sure you have a menorah on the campus and you've let everybody know that Jewish students should not be asked to be in class or return work during a Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So I haven't seen very good results from them, and it's very expensive.
I must say, Professor Blackmer, your image before of closeting your Zionism within those who were closeted or were previously
Yeah.
closeted is a profound one. How does that change?
It's gotten worse. Um, I most of my colleagues, I'm the head of Judaic studies, and most of my colleagues know that I am a Zionist. And some of them don't talk to me anymore. The head of women's studies. And I've approached her and said, hi, and she walks away. So it's gotten very tense. The women's studies program is very, very anti-Zionist and aggressively so. And it would be hard for me to imagine a student going through a program of women's and gender studies at Southern and coming away with a good view of Israel. Impossible to imagine that.
And how does, more generally, the current sentiments in Israel about Israel and the gay and queer communities, can that change? Can Jewish community build more durable alliances in the future?
With the gay and lesbian community?
Yes.
Absolutely. I First of all, we've got much better alliances than we think we do. It's just that our allies in the gay and lesbian community are quiet and doing other things. And when they have in the past tried to come forward and say, I really support Israel, I love the gay community there, they get absolutely decimated, shot down, and people don't like that. It's threatening and bullying, and they avoid it. So I would say, anyway, I mean, things I've done in my life, support people who have oppositional sentiments and say, it's important that we have a variety of viewpoints.
Why don't we go to the audience questions now? There are a lot of them, and obviously we could talk about all these issues for quite some time. One member of the audience asked about the development of a new group of very prominent gay and queer people who might include Dave Rubin, Barry Weiss, Peter
Yeah,
Thiel, the new Treasury Secretary,
right,
who went to his confirmation hearings with his husband almost unremarked,
right,
and probably I think without much doubt, the highest ranking gay official in American history. So,
right.
so do they
Yeah,
represent some Jewish, some not, but prominently conservative, and a
absolutely.
libertarian? Do they represent? Are they just
Oh,
kind of a unique little
absolutely.
group, or are they
Those are the
something
current
bigger?
leaders of the rational, the 65% of gays and lesbians who are pro-Israel and pro and not anti-Semitic. And they are conservative, although I don't know how, I mean, Barry Weiss is, I think, in my opinion, more of a centrist, and the other people you mentioned, and the mere fact that gay man was appointed to be the Treasury Secretary is an indication that Mr. Trump sees a vast difference between gays and lesbians on the one hand and transgendered people on the other. And for the good or for the bad, I would say that that view is supported by most people in the gay community.
Okay, that's a really important point. Could you elaborate on that? Because I'm not sure
Sure.
many in our audience will understand that.
Right. Okay. When we were in the process, some decades ago, of getting acceptance as gay, bisexual, and lesbian people, particularly to start off with marriage, but then other things as well, it was a simple and is a simple political statement. Love is everywhere, and love reigns supreme, and human relationships are defined by love. It doesn't matter the sex of your partner. And people could get their arms around that. It's not a complicated narrative, and it's the truth. And I think it was very smart to center it on the concept of the universality of love. Okay, gays and lesbians get in the door, and I know that there are homophobic people in the world. Sure, absolutely. But I think they become somewhat marginalized in the United States. And even the children of Christian conservatives in this country have become pro-gay and lesbian. Okay, so number one point, simple, straightforward, easy to digest narrative about being gay and lesbian. Okay, transgender. Woo, okay, we are in a different ballpark here. It is not an easy narrative to convey, and there are so many different parts of it. There's the issue of, when did I know I was transgender? What did I do in response to that? And what kind of choices did I make at what point in my life? And if you were under 18 or even 21, that was seen as a medical situation, and there were all sorts of choices that had to be made. You had to get sign-offs from psychiatrists and so forth and so on, to have bodily changes or start taking hormones. And okay, so that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is sports. And is it fair for women to accept what were originally biologically males into women's sports? And that is a very hot issue and not easy to resolve. There's all this information about it, much of it contradictory, and so forth. And the third part is, how much work are you being asked to do um, for the whole issue around transgender? People are being asked to identify their pronouns after their signature. They're being asked to use words which I've cisgendered, and a lot of elaborate demarcations. So I just am here to say that it's going to be very difficult for transgender people to get a simple and legible narrative of who they are out there that most people can identify with and accept.
What I take you as saying, though, is that this very complicated transgender agenda has
Yeah,
kind of swamped the equality agenda that
absolutely.
previously enunciated, which reached its peak at really marriage equality. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Marriage equality is thought, the idea is that, well, we've all done that. And gays and lesbians are not necessarily in a happy place in shared places, LGBTQ community. They're marginalized. And this is the transgender issues that are now central focus. And okay, let me give you an example of how this works. I was in my synagogue there, 4 or 5 weeks ago during Shabbat services, and afterward, someone I know, who is a art professor at Yale, came up to me and she said, "You guys must feel terrible. Gays and lesbians were so getting accepted in the United States, and then the whole transgender issue stuff came up and you were identified with them." And I said, yes, it's very frustrating because in fact, gender identity is a different issue than sexual orientation. I'm not asking anyone to see me as other than, okay, I'm a woman, I was born a woman, and that's not the issue here. And if you think too deep about it, you can get to a point where sexual orientation is no longer real, or it's the gender identity issue that's real.
Professor, another member of our audience writes, how do we remain faithful to the common purpose of protecting the queer community without having the purpose fragmented by different political agendas leading to distractions from this purpose? And also
No.
being an ally against violence outside of this political spectrum.
That is an excellent question, and one I hope I would have an answer to. The best thing I can advise is say stand against homo hatred. Don't indulge in that. You don't need to be that person. You may not understand everything about people, but I would say stand against homo hatred and or hatred of sexual minorities. And I think if you come over with a sort of workable universal view that would take in the issues of equality, that would be successful.
Another member of the audience interestingly writes kind of the same vein. Is there a way of keeping the gay and queer agendas from being distracted from the Gaza Hamas issues? Or how will they continue to dominate the agenda?
The gay and lesbian issues
Yes.
continue
The,
to dominate.
well, Gaza,
The anti-Zionism and the
yes.
reactions to Gaza-Israel war. Um, I First, there's the reality, which is pretty dark and grim, which is that the Gaza-Israeli war has really accelerated anti-Israel and anti-Jewish passions across the board, including in the gay and lesbian community, except for those who are already disposed to like uh, Israel and be supportive of Israel. So that's the situation, and I don't see those fragmentations healing anytime soon, although it looks like Israel is going to win a fairly comprehensive war against Iran's proxies. And that might mean everyone always likes a winner if that's really what happens. And we'll have to see how the outcome of the Israel-Gaza war.
So we have two further questions, which harp on the same theme, so maybe I could combine them. One member of our audience writes, is there a way that gay progressive Zionists can support progressive causes and activities as Zionists? And another member of the audience says, expresses frustration with trying to engage the LGBTQ community who have marched in favor of Palestinian causes.
Right.
And writes, I feel the community has been usurped by an interest group. Am I right about this? And if so, what can we do to interrupt and dismantle this distraction?
Right. And it is a distraction. No doubt about that. I think that it's just like being in the closet sexually, okay? As a sexual minority, it was a diminished way of living. The same thing can be held to be true at this point in time. If anything, the Zionist closet is larger than the gay closet used to be. It is really very extensive. And there's all sorts of people inside that closet. Most of them are not Jewish. And I would do the same thing that I did as an activist and ACT UP and other queer organizations, civil rights organizations, and say, just say that you are a Zionist. Come out of your closet with the Zion and explain to people why you love Israel and you love Jewish people. So I would say be more forward instead of being more recessive.
You're a college professor, so you deal with a lot of college-age students. And you're at your school, you're adjacent and live near Yale. What's your perception of how these issues have played out on college campuses with
Right,
especially gay and queer students?
right. For gay and queer students, you see the same divides and same camps of, oh my God, queers for Palestine. Are you kidding? You must be crazy. And sort of a version of most gays and lesbians and people are puzzled, turned off, and agitated by such things. And what happens then is what's forgotten in all this is the fact that 95% of the students at Yale hated this whole encampment thing, or I say 90, maybe 80, 90%, then it became more popular as time went on, are like, they needed to go to their classes. They were very much aware that this was making Ivy League colleges look horrible for the public, and were not supportive of this protest when it became evident that it was about hate. And not all of it, but much of it was, in fact, and did become about hate. Okay, at my university, the DEI department did a couple of sneaky things that ended up having only anti-Israel people invited for this panel, or this series of talks, rather, about peace in the Middle East. So, we complained, the DEI person left, and, so hopefully it will be better in the future. But it's pretty bad. Most of the students did not like the encampments or anything about it.
And what's your advice to gay and queer students who are Zionists?
Come out of the closet. Do the same thing that gays and lesbians once did and say, you know what? I don't agree with you. And I'm going to say very peacefully, I am a Zionist. And I am not Jewish. Most of them are not. I am a practicing Episcopalian, or, whatever that may be, or I'm interested in Judaism, or all that sort of stuff, and say, and here's why. And I don't think this has been a fair battle.
Professor Corinne Blackmer, obviously we could talk about these issues for a long time, but our time is up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You bet. Absolutely. You're welcome.
And I'd like to thank you, the audience, also for joining us for another AJU Wizen Center for Open Learning program. Hope that you go to our website, www.aju.edu, often to see the many exciting programs. We'd also like to thank you for your support. Since the beginning of this effort, a great many of you have contributed to these programs. They're free, but they're not cost-free to us, so your support is greatly appreciated. And if you're interested in the AJU project on the future of allyship, we have a special webpage. Just Google Future of Allyship in AJU, and you'll go to it directly. Professor Blackmer, thank you very much for a fascinating discussion today, and thank you all
Most
for
welcome.
joining us again. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.